So next Tuesday. Julian, we don't have our phones out. You know that. Okay, here we are on page 21, and we are going to solve this equation. Now, kids, I am not a believer in saying you have to do every problem this way. But I think with problems like these, it eliminates a ton of confusion. If we just, every time we see one of these, we say, okay, I'm going to multiply everything by the common denominator. And in this case, the common denominator would be 4. Now, why would I do that? Well, what happens to these two 4's? They cancel. And all I have left is x minus 1. What happens to these two 4's? They cancel and leave me with x plus 4. What happens to these two 4's? They cancel and leave me with 3. Most of us don't like working with fractions. So what does multiplying everything by 4 do? Gets rid of the fractions. Now you have just a basic regular equation. So 2x plus 3 equals 3. So 2x equals 0. And x equals 0. There's the answer to the question. Easy, right? That was easy. Let's look at the next one. Now I want you to think about doing the same thing. Now this one really only has one fraction in it. So what will the common denominator be? X. The only denominator. It'll be x. So I'm going to multiply everything by x. So what do I have here? Nothing cancels. What do I have here? X squared plus 2x equal to, okay, now wait, what happens to the x's? Cancel. So all I have left is 15.
You subtract 15.
Now I'm going to get it set equal to 0, Moses. You're exactly right. And then, like you said, Moses, I can factor it. What else could I do, class, if I didn't want to factor it, if I'm not good at factoring? I could use the quadratic formula, whatever, flip your switch. It factors plus 5 minus 3. So x equals negative 5 or positive 3. Savannah.
Could you also do complete?
Uh-huh. Yeah, so it can move this way. Everybody good so far? All right, let's look at the next one. What's your common denominator? X. It's your only denominator again. So that's your common denominator. So what are we going to do? We're going to multiply everything by x. Now that doesn't mean you're going to cancel on every term. Nothing cancels here. That's x squared. But what happens here? Plus 12 equals 7x. What kind of equation is that? Quadratic again? So let's rearrange some things.
That's not quadratic.
What do you mean it's not quadratic? Moses got an x squared in it.
That's just minus 3 minus.
Well, we can factor it, but it's a quadratic equation. And Moses says, I want to factor it, so here we go. And what do we end up with as our answers? 4 and 3. 4 and 3? Feeling pretty good so far? Yeah, because now we're at a doozy. Just when you think everything's going great, I throw something like this at you. Now, let's not freak out. Take a look at it. There's one thing I want you to do before we get started. What do you notice about that denominator? It could be factored. So before you do anything, I want you to make sure that every denominator is factored. How does that factor? What can we do? Take out an x. Now, what's my common denominator going to be? Be careful, you have two denominators this time, right? So your common denominator is going to have an x and an x plus 4. So we're going to multiply everything by x and x plus 4. See how I write that down next to every term? Don't be lazy. Do that. Does anything cancel here in the beginning? Anything cancel here? No. So it's 2x, x plus 4. I'm going to have to deal with that. That's what I have. But look at this next term. Does anything cancel here? X plus 4 cancels out, leaving me with minus 3x. And what happens over here? It all cancels out and leaves me with just 12. Jake, you got it? So far so good? Jack? All right, let's distribute here. What do I get when I distribute? 2x squared plus 8x minus 3x equals 12. What am I going to do with that mess? What? Let's collect like terms and maybe get it set equal to 0. So 2x squared plus 5x minus 12. Moses, what are you doing? Typing notes? Okay. Now, Moses is probably going to want to factor this, and you can factor it if you want. Some of you might look at that and think, oh, so I think I'll use the quadratic formula. So it does factor, but just for practice, I'm going to use the quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Do I have to use the quadratic formula? No. If you can factor it, factor it. I'm just doing this to show you do have options. What's 4 times 2 times 12? 96. So So 25 minus negative would be 25 plus, which is 121. Why am I so excited about the square root of 121? Because it's 11. So x equals negative 5 plus or minus 11 over 4. What is negative 5 plus 11? 6 over 4 would be 3 over 2, one of your answers. What is negative 5 minus 11? Your other answer is negative 4. You could have factored this. But before you turn the page, I got one more wrinkle to throw in there. I want you to take this answer that you got, and I want you to put it back in the original equation. What would happen if you put negative 4 in for x? You get 0 where? Is that allowed? No. So what can you tell me about this answer?
It's not.
It is not possible. We call that an extraneous root. We did everything right. It just doesn't work. And you have to throw it out. What makes an answer bad? If the denominator is 0. We don't care about anything else. Everything else is fine. Fractions, negatives, everything's fine. But no zeros in the denominator. All right, let's try one more. Oh, wow, this is a big one, number 5. How shall we begin, number 5? Factor the denominator. How will the denominator factor? X plus 4, x minus 1. That's good news, isn't it? Yeah. Now, what am I going to do next? I am going to take my green marker, and next to every one of these fractions, I'm going to write what? X plus 4, x minus 1. X plus 4, x minus 1. X plus 4, x minus 1. Do not be lazy. Now, what did I do that for? What's the purpose of that? To cancel. So we're going to cancel these out, and what am I going to be left with? 4x times x minus 1. These canceled, so I have 4x, x minus 1. Plus, and these cancel, so 3 times x plus 4 equals, everything's gone, so it's just 15? You have to be organized and neat. There's a lot going on. Okay, so here we go, distribute. What have we got?
4x squared minus 4x plus 3x plus 12 equals 15.
I love his music. So we have another quadratic equation. So we'll combine like terms and get it set equal to 0. again, I have to be very organized and neat with my work. Now, this is a quadratic, so you can factor it. If you don't want to factor it, what are you going to do? The quadratic formula. This one does factor. I'll go ahead and factor this one. I always do a quick double check to make sure I factored correctly. So what are my answers?
X equals 1 and x equals -3/4.
Negative 3/4, that would be this one, or 1. Beep, 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 beep. My little antenna are going up. Because what happens if I put in 1?
It's 0.
I get a 0 where? In the bottom, and that is not allowed. So by golly, we have another extraneous root. Throw it out. We did it right. We didn't make any mistakes. Just can't have it. Katie,
You check both of them.
both answers? Yeah. I can tell, Katie, when I look at the problem from the beginning, it's kind of like vertical asymptotes. X is not going to be able to be -4, and X isn't going to be able to be 1. It can be anything else. So, because I'm old and I do this for a living, I think of that immediately when I write the problem. But yes, you want to make sure neither one of them.
So it's just like the opposite of
Yep.
something that's in this.
Yep, that's exactly right. Okay, how do you feel about that? Okay? All right, I'm going to let you go ahead and get started on your homework then. Because we've learned quite a bit today, got quite a few. Let's get started on our homework.